Dear students, welcome to this lecture. Today, our topic for deliberation is development and environment. The objectives of this lecture would be to understand various issues and concerns related to developmental activities and the environment, to understand the relationship of development and environment using case of India, to analyze how various essential human activities such as agriculture, industry and energy generation have led to environmental degradation, and to examine the need for sustainable development. Dear students, let's begin with the introduction. The 20th century is generally regarded as the century of development in science and technology and advances in economic growth. It was also a century of the decimation of the environment through the overuse of the non-renewable as well as the renewable resources of the planet, in the name of development and improvement in the lifestyles of the human population. It's a widespread misconception that environmental degradation began only with the onset of industrialization. In reality, human activities have been influencing the environment since ancient times. Notable deforestation occurred in the Greek and Roman eras, particularly around the Mediterranean, as a result of excessive logging for shipbuilding, fuel and mining activities, leading to desertification. Although the early human population was relatively small, the ecosystem could manage the impact. As the human population grew, so did the demands for resources by advancement in agriculture, industrialization and mining. This resulted in increased production, consumption and a shift towards non-degradable materials like plastics, along with heightened use of non-renewable resources such as petroleum products. In recent decades, human activities have accelerated, causing visible and hazardous impacts on the hydrosphere, atmosphere and parts of lithosphere. Pressures from population growth, unchecked consumption, urbanization, industrial expansion and high energy demands have raised serious environmental concerns. The growth and development of human society depend on various natural resources, both physical and biological. Land is limited. Water, though replenishable, can become scarce and air quality can deteriorate. Despite the apparent abundance of energy sources like sunlight, they are critically insufficient at the consumer level. Fossil fuels and radioactive elements are finite and depleting rapidly due to increasing use. The unprecedented global growth in production and consumption has led to environmental stress, resulting in irreversible impacts at local, regional and global levels. Examples include global warming and ozone layer depletion as global environmental issues, while acid rain, the condition of oceans in various countries and local impacts such as air and water pollution, soil degradation and deforestation are of international concern. Environmental issues stemming from developmental activities must be analyzed in the context of both global population growth and consumption patterns. The 1972 UN World Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm emphasized the differing perspectives of developed and developing nations regarding the relationship between development and the environment. Developing countries tended to prioritize development over environmental concerns, while developed nations often pointed to population growth as the primary driver of environmental crisis. Within the environmentalist community, there are also divergent opinions. One perspective places greater blame for environmental deterioration on population growth, particularly in developing nations. In contrast, another viewpoint contends that the overconsumption patterns of industrialized nations are responsible for contemporary environmental problems. These differing perspectives highlight the complexity of the relationship between development, population growth, and environmental impact. The majority of environmental issues can be attributed to two main factors. Number one, the interaction between the human population and natural resources, that is resource consumption, and the sheer growth of the human population. Resource consumption issues arise from extracting resources from the environment and depositing waste into it. When examining resource consumption patterns, it becomes evident that per capita consumption in developed countries significantly exceeds that in developing nations. Developed or industrialized countries bear the greatest responsibility for the significant impact of natural resource consumption on global environmental problems, such as atmospheric change. In these countries, higher levels of consumption contribute to issues like climate change. On the other hand, poverty and the inability to meet basic needs in developing countries often result in the utilization of natural resources in ways that lead to environmental degradation. In such cases, people in developing nations may resort to unsustainable practices due to their immediate survival needs, contributing to the overall environmental challenge faced globally. In 1992, the Earth Summit held in Rio de Janeiro aimed to address global environmental issues and emphasize the interconnectedness of the environment and development. During the summit, governments reached an agreement on Local Agenda 21, a comprehensive plan to address environmental concerns at the global, national, and local levels. It highlighted the intricate relationship between poverty, development, and environmental degradation. A key consensus reached in Rio was the acknowledgement that affluent nations bore an ecological debt to less prosperous nations due to the imbalanced consumption of natural resources in wealthier countries. This highlighted the need for a more equitable distribution of environmental responsibility. A decade later, at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg, South Africa, the issue of unsustainable patterns of development and resource consumption, particularly in developed nations, was once again brought to the forefront. The summit aimed to further address and find solutions for those ongoing challenges in the pursuit of sustainable development. The global population's rapid growth, surpassing 6 billion and projected to reach 8 billion by mid-century, raises concerns. However, there is a notable lack of efforts to scrutinize or mitigate consumption levels in developed nations. Disparities in resource utilization are evident, emphasizing the need for equitable distribution and reduced consumption. Environmental stress acts as both a cause and consequence of military conflicts, historically seen in disputes over resources like river waters. Examples such as tensions between Britain and Argentina over fishing zones highlight how environmental resource conflicts can escalate geopolitically. Future challenges require international cooperation and sustainable resource management to mitigate conflicts over environmental resources. Now, issues and concerns of development and environment in India. India, since gaining independence, has witnessed rapid progress with notable strides in industrialization and urbanization. It possesses the world's third largest scientific and technological manpower. Despite a five-fold increase in industrial production over 3 decades, challenges persist, such as poverty, clean air, clean water, education, health and sanitation, soil management, energy access, and housing. Moreover, India's population has experienced significant growth since independence, reaching over 1 billion people today. This demographic expansion, coupled with increased economic development, places strain on the country's environment and infrastructure. The challenge lies in managing these aspects effectively to avoid negative environmental impacts. In the past 2 decades, environmental awareness in India has grown with concerns about global warming, acid rain, scarcity of fodder and fuel wood, and pollution of air, water, and soil gaining attention. The State of the Environment Report for India, prepared by TERI, addresses 5 priority environmental issues identified by the Government of India in line with UNEP guidelines. These are: number 1, land degradation caused by natural and human-induced processes leading to nutrient loss and reduced food grain production. Number 2, loss of biodiversity, threatening many plant and animal species due to habitat destruction and resource overexploitation. Number 3, air pollution, particularly vehicular pollution in cities attributed to rapid industrialization, energy production, urbanization, and an increase in motorized vehicles. Number 4, management of freshwater resources, increasing stress on water resources due to urban growth, industrial activities, intensive farming, and chemical use in agriculture. Number 5, hazardous waste management, with a focus on municipal solid waste, addressing the significant increase in quantities generated by various industries. These core environmental issues in India are crucial for the sustained economic development needed to provide basic amenities to all citizens. One major challenge is industrial pollution, which has become more pronounced with the recent expansion of the chemical industry. Despite a significant economic growth of 163% over the past 20 years, the pollution load has increased by over 475%. Specifically, industrial pollution grew by 247% from 1975 to 95, resulting in highly toxic water bodies, deteriorating ambient air quality, and land degradation. A major concern is the impact of climate change resulting from the emission of greenhouse gases, that's GHGs, primarily carbon dioxide. India faces pressure to reduce its GHG emissions, although unsustainable consumption patterns in industrialized nations have significantly contributed to the GHG accumulation. Anticipated climate change impact on India encompass effects on agriculture, coastal submergence due to rising sea levels, and increased frequencies of extreme events like droughts, floods, and cyclones. These pose significant threats to the country's well-being. Recognizing the interdependence of the environment, development, and poverty is crucial. The cyclical relationship involves increased poverty, putting greater pressure on natural resources, resulting in environmental degradation. To achieve long-term economic development in India, it's imperative to integrate strategies that address both poverty and environmental concerns, breaking this cycle. The degradation of the environment can further contribute to a poverty cycle, impacting employment opportunities negatively. In ecologically marginal areas where approximately 500 million of the world's poorest people reside, there's a risk of overexploitation of natural resources for survival, leading to reduced productivity. This highlights the complex connection between the environment and socio-economic well-being. emphasizing the necessity for sustainable development practices to foster ecological and economic resilience. Dear students, let's delve into the impact of various developmental activities on the environment, including agriculture, energy generation, industrialization, and urbanization. Each of these sectors play a crucial role in shaping the environmental landscape, and understanding their effects is essential for devising sustainable and environmentally friendly practices. Coming on to impact of agriculture practices. Agriculture, likely the earliest human industry, also stands as the world's largest, engaging over half of the global population. Given its scale, it's expected that agriculture significantly influences the environment. Over the past century, agriculture has experienced substantial transformations. The adoption of modern tools, electric-powered irrigation systems, agro-machinery relying on fossil fuels, chemical fertilizers, plant protection chemicals, and high-yielding crop varieties has characterized the shift towards modern agriculture. Despite the considerable boost in crop production facilitated by modern agricultural practices, there is a downside. It has led to significant harm to the natural balance of the environment. The use of these modern inputs has introduced environmental challenges, emphasizing the need for sustainable agricultural practices that balance increased productivity with ecological preservation. Let's discuss some of the major impacts of modern agriculture that lead to environmental issues of land degradation. Deforestation, primarily fueled by agricultural activities, poses a significant threat, especially in developing tropical countries. While developed nations have managed to stabilize or reverse deforestation through afforestation efforts, countries like India face ongoing challenges due to human activities like shifting agriculture, mineral extraction, road construction, and logging. Deforestation disrupts the water cycle, leading to local issues such as surface runoff, soil erosion, and floods, while also causing downstream flooding and siltation regionally. Globally, the associated biomass burning contributes to elevated atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, endangering biodiversity in tropical forests, that is home to at least half of the world's plant and animal species. Urgent conservation measures are imperative. Salinization, a natural process in arid regions, intensifies with excessive irrigation in crop cultivation. In India, salt-affected soils cover 5.5 million hectares, and 3.58 million hectares of alkaline soils remain unproductive. Despite having the world's largest irrigated area covering 59 million hectares and utilizing 501 billion cubic meters of water in 1997, the increasing demand poses challenges in managing water sustainably to prevent salinization and waterlogging. Inappropriate agricultural practices worldwide accelerate soil erosion, causing an annual loss of about 75,000 million tons of soil. High population pressures in developing nations drives cultivation on marginal lands, exacerbating erosion. Wash-off erosion, especially prominent in hilly regions, is connected to desertification in semi-arid and arid areas. Effectively managing soil erosion becomes essential for sustainable land practices, particularly in regions susceptible to desertification. Excessive use of chemical fertilizers in modern agriculture, particularly those with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, that's NPK, causes soil micronutrient imbalances. The rapid plant growth surpasses the soil's natural ability to replenish micronutrients, leading to deficiencies. The Industrial Revolution's impact, exemplified by zinc deficiency in regions like Punjab and Haryana, further exacerbates the problem. Additionally, approximately 1/4 of applied fertilizers go unused by plants, contaminating groundwater with nitrates, posing health risks particularly for infants. Runoff water carrying excess fertilizers contributes to eutrophication in aquatic bodies. A critical necessity is to balance fertilizer use to prevent these environmental and health hazards. Dear students, let's talk about impact of industrialization. After agricultural practices, the subsequent significant shift in human society was the Industrial Revolution, originating in England. This era marked the discovery of methods to harness chemical energy stored in fossil fuels such as coal, later extending to oil and natural gas. The traditional modes of transportation, including horse-drawn vehicles and wind-powered ships, were replaced by coal-burning steam engines. This technological advancement swiftly transformed agriculture-based rural societies into more urbanized and early industrialized communities. The influence of the Industrial Revolution did not confine itself to England, but spread to create what we now identify as the core nations of the developed world. By 1870, distinctive industrial regions had emerged in France, Belgium, Russia, Germany, the USA, and Japan. These regions were characterized by a significant increase in per capita energy consumption, primarily based on coal as a fuel source. The impact of industrialization on the environment can be illustrated by examining a steel mill or a coal mine, focusing on its environmental effects at the local and regional levels. At the local level, the environmental impact is characterized by altered land use involving extensive construction, including buildings, sheds, material heaps, roads, and hard surfaces. During the construction phase, large areas of bare soil contribute to sediment runoff, and once completed, the industrial facility transforms the landscape into an urbanized zone. This heavily developed area can have repercussions for local water bodies. The water quality is likely to be affected due to the percolation of waste materials from the factory, leading to higher loads of suspended and dissolved matter. Some of these substances may be toxic to aquatic life. Additionally, downstream watercourses may experience an increase in the organic component of sewage. Overall, the local impact of industrialization on the environment encompasses changes in land use, alterations in water quality, and the introduction of potentially harmful substances. Likewise, the air in the vicinity of the industrial facility would be contaminated. There is a higher concentration of soot near the chimney, impacting the residents in the immediate vicinity. In the downwind direction, the impact diminishes gradually, but sulfur compounds can precipitate as dilute acid rain, posing a threat to buildings and vegetation, gradually causing deterioration. Now let's talk about the impact of urbanization. The global trend of urbanization is on the rise, driven by technological advancements, economic development, and population growth. Urbanization, a phenomenon observed worldwide, involves the migration of people from rural areas to cities seeking better economic opportunities, education, healthcare, and entertainment. Over time, the urban population has grown significantly, surpassing 50% of the global total. Initially prominent in developed countries, rapid urbanization has become a pronounced feature in the large cities of developing nations. In 1900, only 13 cities worldwide had populations exceeding 1 million, mostly in Europe and North America. By 2000, the number of such cities had expanded to 400, with a substantial portion located in India and China. In developing countries, urban growth has been particularly swift in specific cities termed megalopolises or megacities. Notably, these megacities in less affluent nations have experienced faster growth rates compared to their counterparts in the developed world. Urbanization has profound and far-reaching impacts on both local and regional environments, influencing climate, water system, and biodiversity, while also introducing new hazards and security challenges. The most noticeable effect of urbanization is the consumption of land, but its consequences extend well beyond the immediate areas converted for settlements. Cities exert a significant influence on their surroundings by extracting resources such as timber, fuel, building materials, and water from increasingly wider zones around them to meet their expanding needs. Simultaneously, growing amounts of solid wastes, landfills, and pollutants in water and air are transported to the hinterlands by urban centers. Urbanization has substantial and diverse impacts on the environment, affecting air and water quality, biodiversity, climate, and resource consumption. The conversion of natural landscapes to built-up areas leads to habitat loss and fragmentation, contributing to the displacement of wildlife and loss of biodiversity. Urban areas are significant sources of air and water pollution due to increased industrial activities, vehicular emissions, and improper waste disposal. Moreover, urban centers contribute to climate change through greenhouse gas emissions. The heat island effect in cities results in elevated temperatures impacting energy consumption and ecosystem dynamics. Now, dear students, let's talk about impact of energy generation. Human ingenuity has allowed the exploitation of various forms of energy, from fire to wind and water mills. The Industrial Revolution, fueled by fossil fuels, and the steam engine marked a significant economic and environmental shift. Inventions throughout history aimed at improving quality of life have led to reliance on energy-consuming machines like electricity, automobiles, and computers. Presently, our survival hinges on three main fossil fuels: coal, oil, and natural gas, with India's per capita energy consumption being low compared to the global average. The environmental impact of energy generation is diverse and depends on the energy sources employed. Fossil fuels, including coal, oil, and natural gas, contribute to air pollution, climate change, and land disruption. Nuclear power poses challenges with radioactive waste and the risk of accidents. Renewable energy sources such as solar and wind alter landscapes and involve material extraction. Biomass combustion releases pollutants but has lower impact than fossil fuels, requiring substantial land use. Natural gas emits methane, contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. Geothermal power has minimal land impact, while drilling for resources may have localized effects. Advancements in technology and a shift towards cleaner energy sources are vital for mitigating these environmental consequences and fostering sustainability. Coming on to the conclusion, dear students, the objective of this discussion was to raise questions about the development process, particularly in terms of industrialization and economic growth. However, it highlights the inherent connection between environment and development. Development cannot thrive if it depletes environmental resources, and conversely, the environment cannot be safeguarded without considering development's impact. Failing to manage the environment and sustain development jeopardizes our fundamental existence. The core principle is that development should not jeopardize the natural systems vital for life on Earth. From historical instances of deforestation in ancient civilizations to the challenge posed by contemporary issues like climate change and pollution, it's evident that human activities significantly influence the environment. The growing global population, coupled with increased consumption and industrial expansion, has intensified these challenges. The concept of sustainable development emerges as a crucial paradigm, emphasizing the need to harmonize economic growth with environmental preservation. Recognizing the finite nature of resources and the interconnectedness of human existence with the environment becomes paramount. So, dear students, I hope you enjoyed this lecture on development and environment. See you soon with another lecture. Thank you.